You just spend 20, maybe 40 hours finishing your 3D model. You sculpted every detail and refined every surface. And you think it is done. But now what? What should I do with this model? This is where more beginner 3D artists get stuck. They finish the model and have no idea what to do next. So these are the three main directions your model can take. And before you move forward, you need to ask yourself a question. Because that answer can completely change your future as an artist. Do you want to create powerful images that conveys emotion? Do you want to see your model in motion as part of a living project? Or do you want to bring it into the real world and hold it in your own hands? Once you choose a path, you are committing to the entire workflow that comes with it. And that's exactly what this video is about. So let's break down what actually happens after you finish a 3D model and the three different workflows that you can follow from that point. The first path a 3D model can take is into video games or animation, and that is a fairly technical path. The high definition model is just the starting point for a series of processes that make it functional. The first step is retopology, which means rebuilding the model's geometry by creating a new mesh on top of the high poly. This new mesh you can see here is built polygon by polygon, trying to respect the original shape, but using fewer polygons and with a more organized geometry flow. The goal is to achieve a clean and fluid silhouette. And here it is very important that the model stays in a resting pose, no dynamic poses. We need the character with the arms open, in a neutral stance, so that when we create the rig, which is assigning the weight of the polygons to the character skeleton, everything works correctly. Once we have the low poly model, we move on to UV sandbaking, which means projecting all the detail from the high poly onto the low poly. This generates a series of maps like the normal map, which gives the model the illusion of detail without needing so much geometry. Then comes the texturing process, where we use those maps to create color, metalness, roughness, and other surface details. And all of this is done with performance and compatibility in mind. If the model is for a game engine like Unity or Unreal, it needs to be lightweight and well optimized. Even in film animation, where performance is not that critical, a good topology will help with the smooth deformations and fewer errors when rigging. This path requires some patience and technical skill, but it is essential if you want to work professionally in games or films. So, learning this 3D path opens many doors and prepares you for thin workflows, real pipelines, and large projects. The second possible path for a high poly model is presentation or 3D illustration. In this path, we create a high quality render, and it's ideal if you want to produce a strong visual piece. Unlike a game-oriented model, here the character is posed. The idea is for it to look alive, expressive, and convey something, preferably with a dynamic pose, depending on the style you are aiming for. Once the model is posed, the lighting process begins. At this stage, you place lights as if you were photographing a sculpture. You can use lamps, area lights, point lights, or HDRI images. Here on the screen you can see, for example, how I am adding lights to this character that is already finished. In this case, I'm using the lights to create contrast and highlight the volume. After lighting, we move on to shading. This is where we define the color, the roughness, whether it reflects light or not, and whether it looks metallic, plastic, or light skin. In this case, we don't need UVs or complex textures. It's enough to use base materials or shaders that help shape the character and make it look interesting from the camera's view. So, as you can see, this workflow doesn't require retopology or optimization. All the details you sculpted and modeled stays exactly as it is. What really matters is that it looks good from the camera and conveys the character intention. It's a workflow we use when we want to showcase a model without going through the full technical optimization process. And it is also the process we follow in my Blender for Beginner course to create appealing visual pieces and learn with practical exercises. If you're interested, you have the link below. So, if your goal is to create visual impact quickly, 3D illustration is the most direct path to achieve it. And finally, the third path a high poly model can take is bringing it into the physical world, turning it into a real object that you can paint and hold in your hands. Although it sounds magical, 3D printing also has technical demands. First, just like in illustration, the character must be posed. because the intention here is for it to look alive and expressive, like a statue or a collectible figure. But unlike rendering, in this path, physical stability does matter. You have to think about where the character stands properly, if there are very thin parts that might break, and where the center of gravity is well balanced. Then we move on to something called splits and keys. This means dividing the model into pieces so they can be printed separately and later assembled. Here I have this model that I prepared for 3D printing, and we can use it as an example. Here you can see that we have some separated pieces that fit into each other, and that we can join together after printing. This is a necessary process because when we print, we have to add supports. The model is always printed in layers, and those layers must be connected. There can't be loose parts. So to make this easier, we cut it and then reassemble it. And finally, there is a whole preparation process for printing. First, the supports are prepared in the slicer. Then the print is done, preferably in resin, which preserves the details better. After that, it is cured with UV light. A primer is applied so that the paint adheres properly, and that's when the most fun part begins, painting the sculpture, which can be done with a brush or an airbrush. Holding in your hands a piece that once existed only on your screen is an incredible experience, but it is not magic. It requires understanding the limits of printing, preparing the files properly, and having patience for every step. As we've seen, a high poly model can take several paths once it's finished, and there is not a single correct route. It completely depends on what you want to achieve. My advice is that if you are just starting out, begin with 3D illustration. It is the most accessible path since it doesn't require optimization or retopology. You only need a good pose, lighting, and materials. And with that, you can already create a strong image to showcase your work. Later on, you will be able to explore the other paths. And if you want to learn more 3D, I have several courses where I explain these processes step by step. Blender for Beginners, where you can learn modeling and texturing from scratch. Digital sculpting with Blender if you want to create detailed characters. And complete courses about character creation for games. You will find all the links in the description. And also I will be uploading several videos to this channel explaining all these workflows in detail. So if you are interested, I invite you to subscribe. I am the Parabox, and remember that in every vertex there is a universe of possibilities. See you in the next video.